Natasha and Her Illegitimate Child in a Muslim Society. A novel by Dr. A. Ahmed. This story is narrated in 2 books. Book 1. Copyrights. All rights are reserved. No part of this book may be reproduced, stored in a retrieval system, or transmitted in any form or by any means without the prior written permission of the author, except by a reviewer who may quote brief passages in a review to be printed in a newspaper, magazine, school journal, or university article. This novel is a work of fiction, but the entire story is based on the actual life of a Muslim family in Sudan. Therefore, all names, characters, places, and incidents are either the product of the author's imagination or are used fictitiously. Any resemblance to actual persons, living or dead, events, or locales is entirely coincidental. Chapter 59. The Court Order for Paternity DNA Test. The supposedly dangerous psychopath patient, Natasha Shams al-Din, remained in the mental hospital for 6 months. During those 6 months, she was continuously given those strong medications and electric shocks. She was treated as a dangerous lunatic who is suffering from an antisocial personality disorder. Sadly, such unnecessary electroshock therapy treatment caused serious damage to her brain and completely wiped out her memory. No doctor is able to find out what is wrong with her. Even so, her violent reaction to the medications convinced every doctor that she is suffering from a mental disease. Besides that, the mental hospital depended on the report of that Muslim female psychiatrist doctor. The strong medications had many other serious side effects on Natasha. She lost her hair and weight. In a short period, her body became emaciated. Her face is always pale, and her eyes look like a dying person. Wahid tried several times to obtain permission for the spiritual treatment of his ex-wife, but his requests were always declined. He convinced the elders of the church to visit his ex-wife in the hospital and pray over her. His church pastor and some elders visited Natasha, anointed her with holy oil, laid hands on her head, and prayed for her divine healing. During or after their prayers, Natasha did neither manifested evil spirits nor reacted violently, and that convinced her ex-husband and the church leaders that she did not have demons in her body. When Wahid is convinced that Natasha has no demons inside her, he begins to look for the cause of her problem somewhere else. He refused to accept the medical explanation that Natasha is suffering from a serious mental sickness. He began his search with his mother. His mother insisted that Natasha was a normal and healthy girl and never showed any symptoms of mental problems until the day the police arrested her and took her by force to the mental hospital. According to the testimony of Mrs. Mary Morgus, Natasha used to take care of her children like any loving mother. She was studying and doing her homework regularly. She was showing the same love towards her. She slept during the night, and she ate her 3 meals in the right time. So, Mrs. Mary Morgus convinced her son that Natasha was not posing any threat to her family or herself. After he listened to the testimony of his mother, Wahid went and met Natasha's Ethiopian girlfriend Almaz Abraha. Her best girlfriend confirmed the testimony of Mrs. Morgus and added that Natasha is well-behaved and normal until the day she visited the female psychiatrist's clinic. Furthermore, the Ethiopian girl informed Wahid that she is the one who took Natasha to the clinic in her car, and when she came out, she took her to her apartment. Wahid did not stop at those close individuals' testimonies, but went and talked to Natasha's professors and classmates at her college. He met with 4 professors and interviewed 12 classmates of his ex-wife. None of them hinted at any sign of mental symptoms to indicate that Natasha is mentally sick or behaved in an abnormal way. They collectively testified that Natasha is an exceptionally intelligent and friendly girl. She is obtaining high marks in all her exams. She did not behave in any way to show that she is suffering from a dangerous mental illness. Wahid tape recorded the statements of the 4 university teachers of his ex-wife for legal references. Likewise, he videotaped his interviews with Natasha's 12 classmates. Before lodging a legal complaint against the hospital authority, Wahid decided to meet the Muslim Jordanian female psychiatrist and find out how and why she concluded that his ex-wife is suffering from a serious personality disorder. After meeting her, Wahid came to know why the female doctor drew her conclusion. She said to him, his ex-wife believed that her father is a dangerous terrorist, kidnapped and raped her, fathered a child from her, and he also sent Islamic terrorists twice to murder her. She also said to him, Natasha believed that she married her own brother and had a child with him. Wahid Muhammad Ahmad told the female psychiatrist that whatever Natasha had said about her father is true and everything had been documented by the Calgary police. But her claim that he is her brother has not heard her saying that before. He also said to the Arab female psychiatrist that whatever Natasha claimed about his relationship with her, that is not a reason for her to report her to the police and accuse her as suffering from a dangerous mental sickness. Moreover, he said to her, he had collected enough pieces of evidence to prove that his ex-wife was normal and did not show any symptoms of the mental problems until the day she visited her clinic and talked to her. The testimonies of her Ethiopian girlfriend, college's professors, and classmates proved that Natasha never behaved in a way to indicate that she is mentally sick and posed danger to the people around her. Moreover, his mother, Mrs. Mary Morgus, also testified that his ex-wife is a normal girl and never posed a threat to herself or her family members. In accordance, Wahid suspected that the Muslim female Dr. Salma Abdulaziz Abbas somehow came to know about Natasha's apostasy from Islam and conversion to Christianity and the consequences that followed her kidnap and rape by her Muslim father in the city of Calgary. He also suspected that the Arab female doctor, like many Muslims, held Natasha responsible for exposing the teachings of Islam, which justified incest, rape, and terrorism. He concluded that the Muslim psychiatrist, Dr. Salma Abdulaziz Abbas, decided to take revenge on Natasha and hence falsely accused her of being mentally sick and posing imminent danger to the public. Accordingly, Wahid submitted a lawsuit against the Muslim female psychiatrist who reported his wife to the police, the 4 police officers who arrested her, and the mental hospital that is treating her as a dangerous lunatic patient. As soon as the case of Natasha reached the police, it leaked out and reached the media. The police of Toronto were able to obtain the files of Natasha and Wahid from Calgary police. Everything Natasha said about her terrorist father is found to be true and matched her words to the female psychiatrist word by word. The only claim that the police could not verify is her claim that she married her own brother and has a child with him. Unfortunately, Natasha's memory has been wiped out by the wrong treatment, and therefore, there is no way to find out why she made such a strange claim. Dr. Salma had recorded her conversation with Natasha for any future legal dispute. The police of Toronto obtained the recorded conversation between the Arab female psychiatrist and Natasha, which proved that the latter informed the former that her ex-husband is her own biological brother. The lawyer informed Wahid that if his ex-wife's claim that she married her own brother and had a child with him is proved to be wrong, then that would weaken his lawsuit. Although Wahid believes that his ex-wife's claim that he is her own brother is unlikely to be true, he still decided to investigate it and find out why she made that strange claim. After much deliberation, Wahid began to suspect that most likely his wife made that false claim under a life threat that she received from her terrorist father. He is thinking that somehow, her wicked father found out that she is studying at Toronto University and sent some terrorists to her with that serious life-threatening. He must have threatened to wipe out her family if she did not break up with her apostatized husband and forsake Christianity. Although such a theory might sound to be likely true, Wahid's lawyer asked him to confirm it or otherwise, the court would not accept it. Wahid strove hard to find a piece of single evidence to confirm his theory, but he found none. While he is desperately looking for a way to confirm his theory, the Calgary police informed him that, through their intelligence in Somalia, they were able to obtain information that Sheikh Yasser Saif al-Din was killed a year ago in an internal terrorist fight over an honor. According to the informant, the late Sheikh Yasser Saif al-Din killed a big Somali chieftain and kidnapped and raped his wife. Because of that, the brothers of the deceased man had raided and murdered Sheikh Yasser in a horrific way. Consequently, Wahid dropped the idea of linking the claim of his wife with her terrorist father. In the meantime, the Muslim female psychiatrist's lawyer demanded that a DNA test must be conducted on Wahid and his ex-wife Natasha in order to prove that the two are not brother and sister. If such evidence is established, then the lawyer believed that he would be able to convince the court that his female client's suspicion of Natasha's mental defects is based on good ground. Therefore, Natasha's breaking up with her husband for such a false and strange reason would convince anyone that she is having a problem in her mind, and that problem led her to imagine things that are not true. So, if Natasha lied deliberately about the reason for breaking up her marriage, then she had deceived the female psychiatrist and made her believe that she is having mental defects. When the lawyer of the Arab female psychiatrist submitted his request, the court agreed that a sibling DNA test should be done on Wahid and Natasha. However, Wahid's lawyer protested a sibling DNA test and demanded a parental DNA test instead. He contended that the sibling DNA test result would not be conclusive and gives a result based on a high probability, while the paternity DNA test would be conclusive and give a 99.9% accuracy result. Through the Calgary police report, the lawyer learned that Natasha previously underwent a parental DNA test to determine whether her rapist is her biological father or not, and also, he is fathered through her rape her son Sami Shams al-Din. Moreover, Wahid's lawyer knew that the Arab female psychiatrist mentioned in her statement that Natasha claimed that she came to know her husband and she shared the same father and the same mother. Therefore, a parental DNA test would prove or disprove Natasha's claim. Wahid is ordered by a court in Toronto to travel back to Calgary City in order to conduct the DNA paternity test. He reluctantly agreed to follow the court order. He strongly believed that Natasha is not his sister. But Wahid has no choice except to abide by the law and follow the court order. He is sent to the same medical institute where Natasha's father's cell samples are kept. The institute staff took a sample of his salvia cells and told him the result would come out within 48 hours, and it would be sent directly to the Toronto court which ordered it. Despite that, Wahid is 100% certain that the result of the DNA paternity test would confirm that he and his ex-wife Natasha have nothing to relate them to each other except their genuine love and the daughter Nadia they have got as a fruit of their holy Christian matrimonial before that family crisis had occurred and destroyed everything. As a former Christian pastor, Wahid doesn't believe in divorce, and therefore he never considered their everlasting marriage has dissolved through the court. Chapter 60. Medical Negligence. The hidden identities of Wahid and Natasha were revealed by the Calgary police and became public knowledge through the media. The media wrote extensively about them. The trial that was initiated by Wahid received so much publicity. Everyone came to know that the girl who was previously kidnapped and raped by her Muslim father and delivered a baby boy through rape is the same girl whose supposedly blood relationship with her ex-husband is under investigation by the police of Toronto. The court issued an order for the paternity DNA test to find out whether her husband is her true brother. According to her claim, she unwittingly married her own brother and has a baby girl with him. Such a possibility made the moral and social questions resurrect again. If the paternity DNA test confirmed her claim, then how could such a baby girl live in society? What would be her relation to her father, mother, and baby brother? Her father would be her father and uncle, her mother would be her mother and auntie, and her brother would be her brother and cousin. During those legal processes, Natasha remained to lie lifeless as one of the vegetables in that mental hospital. The strong medications and repeated electric shocks rendered her motionless and killed most of her brain cells. Wahid was determined to punish all those who sent her to that mental hospital. On the contrary, the Muslim female psychiatrist is wishing that the paternity DNA test would come negative. In that case, she knew she would have a strong basis for saving herself from the charge of purposely destroying the life of an innocent girl. 6 months passed since Natasha was forced against her wish, torn apart from her children and loving mother-in-law, and taken by those 4 police officers to that jail-like mental hospital. It became difficult for Mr. Mary Morgas to take care of the house and the little children. Wahid understood that his mother needed his help until Natasha recovered and returned home. Therefore, he closed his apartment and moved back to his old apartment to help his mother with the care of his 2 children and the home. While he is waiting for the trial of those who destroyed the life of his beloved Natasha, a tragedy happened in his life, which added to the misery of his family. In all those 6 months, Wahid never shared with his mother what Natasha had claimed about his blood relationship with him. Moreover, his mother remained faithful to her promise to Natasha, and therefore she didn't tell her son about the result of the siblingship DNA she found in her bag. Sadly, before the trial took place, the woman who raised him up when he was infant-old and gave him the love of a mother died suddenly of a heart attack. The day Wahid saw his mother has collapsed in front of his eyes, it is one of the saddest days in his life. He called the ambulance and rushed his mother to the hospital. Mrs. Mary Morgus is declared dead as soon as her lifeless body reaches the hospital. The sudden departure of the loving and kind mother is a strong blow in the already bleeding heart of her son. The death of Mrs. Morgus during the family's struggle for survival marked for Wahid the beginning of a lonely journey in his miserable life. When the Ethiopian girl Almaz Abraha came to know about the death of Wahid's mother, she came and stretched loving hands to the children of her best girlfriend, Natasha. She explained to her parents that her girlfriend's children lost their grandmother, and without a mother to take care of them, and their father is occupied with their care, and the care of his ex-wife too. Her parents accepted her proposal and asked her to convince Wahid to bring his children to their house so that they could take care of them while he was away from his apartment. The Abraha family decided voluntarily to help and refused to receive a single dollar for taking care of the little children. Wahid felt that the Abraha family's helping hands came at the time he needed not only their help, but some kind of Christian people to stand with him and assure him that God is still in control and taking care of his family. After the responsibility of the children's babysitting is taken care of by the loving Ethiopian family, Wahid spent most of his time in the psychiatric hospital beside his ex-wife. He is taking care of her more than the mental health unit staff are doing. Shortly after the death of his mother, Wahid attended that crucial trial. He has a different concern from the rest of the world. His main concern is to see to it that the law must punish those who caused serious damage to Natasha's brain. Many people attended that controversial trial. The trial received wide media coverage. Most of the people came there to find out the result of the paternity DNA test rather than the outcome of the dispute between the Wahid Muhammad Ahmed family versus those who are allegedly responsible for the damage of Natasha's brain. Those people wanted to know whether truly a brother and a sister got married and had a child, or it is just another fancy story that received unnecessary media attention. The court began by verifying the mental condition of Natasha when she made a visit to the female psychiatrist of her ex-husband. First, the court heard the pieces of evidence that have been collected by Wahid from those people who knew Natasha closely, such as her mother-in-law, the late Mrs. Mary Morgus, her Ethiopian girlfriend Almaz Abraha, her professors, and her classmates. Accordingly, the court concluded that the defendant's ex-wife Natasha was mentally well and sound before, and on the day, she visited the female psychiatrist of her ex-husband. After that, the court investigated the arguments of the female psychiatrist's lawyer that what Natasha said about her father and husband is enough ground for his female client to conclude that she is mentally sick. The lawyer contended that even if the investigations might prove that what Natasha had said about her father and husband are true statements, still his female client acted in good faith and concluded that such abnormal relations are the production of a sick mind. After hearing the arguments of both sides, the court disclosed the result of the paternity DNA test. Before reading out the result, the judge said that the police of Calgary confirmed Natasha's claims that she had been kidnapped, raped, and imprisoned by her late father Sheikh Yasser Saif al-Din. Out of her father's rape, Natasha conceived and gave birth to her second child. A former paternity DNA test result confirmed that Natasha was impregnated by her rapist and delivered his child. Moreover, Natasha's claims that her biological father attempted to murder her and her ex-husband at a Christmas party were verified by the police of Calgary too. Therefore, Wahid's ex-wife did not lie to his female psychiatrist on those claims she made about her biological father. Notwithstanding, the Criminal Court of Toronto could not be able to find out why Natasha believed that she married the person who shared with her the same father and the same mother. The police investigations into the case could not be able to find any proof that led Natasha to draw such a conclusion. At any rate, after the court received the official paternity DNA test result, it appeared that Natasha's words are 99.9% accurate and confirmed by the result. The results showed that Natasha Shams Aldeen has unwittingly married her own brother Wahid Muhammad Ahmed. Whether Natasha and Wahid shared the same mother or not could not be known by the court unless the mother of one or both is available for the maternity DNA test. But the court has been informed by the police of Calgary that Natasha's mother was arrested and condemned by the Khartoum Sharia court for allegedly committing twice adultery and giving birth to 2 illegitimate babies and flogged to death by receiving 200 lashes on her back. Natasha's statement to the female psychiatrist revealed that she believed that she and her husband shared the same mother too. Such a claim became unnecessary to the court after it confirmed that she made a true statement that her husband is her brother. But no one knew how she had obtained such knowledge about her blood relationship with her brother, who became her husband. While the court was reading the result of the paternity DNA testing, Wahid's heart stopped beating for a few seconds and his mind ceased to function when he heard that Natasha is truly his real sister. He began to shake and perspire from head to feet. Before the court rendered its final verdict, he lost consciousness and felt lifeless on the solid floor. His body was rushed to the hospital. Everyone in court concluded that he received a major heart attack and died at the spot. His mind couldn't contain such unbelievably great shock. Nevertheless, the court resumed its ruling as soon as Wahid's lifeless body was taken out of the courtroom. The court has rejected the charges that have been laid against the Muslim female psychiatrist that on religious bias accused Natasha of mental sickness. However, the court found the female psychiatrist Dr. Abbas Salma Abdulaziz is guilty of medical negligence. The court does neither find any one of the mental hospital's medical team guilty of medical negligence, nor does it find the 4 police officers who forcefully took Natasha to the mental hospital acted in any way against the law. Therefore, the Muslim female psychiatrist, Dr. Salma Abdulaziz Abbas, received 6 months suspension from work without pay. But she did not lose her medical license. She could return to her work as soon as her legal suspension period is over. Chapter 61. Demands of the women's rights activists. A few people bothered about the judgment of the court on the so-called medical negligence, which resulted in severely damaging the brain of Natasha and turning her into a vegetable. Nonetheless, the result of the paternity DNA test occupied the news for an exceedingly long time. The media people interviewed Wahid Muhammad Ahmed after he overcame that shocking news and discharged from the hospital. He has been interviewed many times. After he came to know that Natasha is his sister and they were unwittingly married to each other, Wahid decided to reveal his life story from A to Z. He wanted to expose to the entire world the evils of the Islamic teachings that made him suffer all his life and eventually led him to marry his own sister. He did neither changed nor concealed anything from the media. He began narrating his life story from his childhood into that Christian orphanage in Khartoum, Sudan. He narrated his suffering and struggle in that primitive and religious society because he was born as an illegitimate child, his brief life in Egypt until he landed in Canada. He then narrated how the Muslim Sudanese community in Calgary hated and despised him. Unknowingly, meeting his sister Natasha in Calgary, falling in love with her, eventually marrying her, living with her as a wife, having a child with her, being divorced by her for a mysterious reason, and finally, he came to know through the court the result of the DNA paternity test that she is his own sister. The media also dug deep into the life of the victim Natasha Shams Aldeen. Some of them were able to go back to her past and collect all available historical data in her case. Her family life before she was born without the sanctity of the marriage bond until the court found out she was unknowingly married to her brother. The events of her life and the life of her mother, father, grandparents, husband, and brother, and her 2 children amazed those who traced them. Her story is the most extraordinary, unlikely to happen again, and abusive life that ever happened in human history. It is a unique life out of a million lives. Some writers of the biographies of extraordinary people proposed to write Natasha and Wahid's biographies. Some movie directors wished to convert their story into a movie. Wahid welcomed the proposals of the movie directors and the biographies writers. He told them that he wanted the entire world to know about the evils of the Sharia laws which have been drawn from the teachings of the Quran and the hadiths of the alleged prophet of God Muhammad. He wished that the United Nations would abolish the Sharia laws and punish any country that implemented those barbaric and draconian Islamic laws. Any country refused to comply with the resolution of the United Nations, its membership should be revoked, and it should face international political and economic sanctions. The women's rights activists in Toronto directed their anger toward the restrictions that Muslim societies placed on women for controlling their sexuality. Those activists argued that Natasha's mother should not have suffered such a harsh punishment, which resulted in her untimely death, for having sex with her boyfriend twice before marriage. The women's rights activists demanded that the cruel punishment of adultery, which is flogging or stoning the adulterers, by the Islamic Sharia laws must be abolished. The stigmatized social concept of wad haram, or an illegitimate child, which associated with shame and disgrace for the family in the Arab and Muslim countries, must be abolished or reformed. Women's sexuality should not be considered taboo, and their sexual behaviors should not be controlled and directed by their men. Muslim countries must legalize abortion, use of condoms, and allow the establishment of orphanages for unwanted or homeless children. Adoption must become legal in Muslim countries. Muslim women should be given the right to choose their life partners. Canada must offer a safe refuge for every Muslim woman who decided to escape the oppression and the abuse of her society. The law must prescribe severe punishment for any Muslim man caught practicing polygamy or female child marriage in Canada. The women's rights activists demanded that the Islamic Sharia should not be allowed to exist in any form in Canada. Muslim countries should be discouraged from implementing Sharia laws, and instead they should be encouraged to apply secular laws. Islamic practices which abuse women must be abandoned in Muslim countries. The United Nations organization must apply restrictions and penalize any Islamic country that allowed evil practices such as female genital mutilation or cutting, female child marriage, polygamy, wife beating, honor killings, flogging, amputation, and stoning. Other civilized countries must apply economic and political sanctions on any Muslim country that allowed those evil practices. After drafting their demands, the women's rights activists sent it to Geneva to the headquarters of the United Nations organization. The UN office forwarded a copy of that draft to many Muslim countries and urged them to comply with the articles of the Charter of Human Rights. The UN office knew that all those demands of the women's rights activists of Canada were mentioned in the Charter of Human Rights, which all countries had signed when they applied for membership. Even Muslim countries are supposedly promised to comply with those rights. Nevertheless, many Muslim countries considered it a silly joke when they received those demands that required them to forsake their divine Sharia laws and apply man-made secular laws. As a result, the case of Natasha and Wahid led to extensive writings and criticisms of the Islamic Sharia law. University professors, critics, politicians, lawmakers, and other thinkers from all walks of life expressed their opinions on such an important event in human history. One of those writings drew the attention of the public and was widely read. It is an article written by a Sudanese professor. The article drew a sharp contrast between the Islamic Sharia laws and the Charter of Human Rights. According to the writer, the Islamic Sharia laws, which mainly based on the Quran and the Sunnah of the Prophet Muhammad, are against human rights. There is a violation of human rights almost in every Muslim country. In other words, every Muslim society followed those Islamic laws that violated the basic rights of its followers. Even Muslim men who are living in secular countries such as Canada, the USA, the UK, France, and Australia covertly use their Islamic laws to oppress and deny basic rights to their female counterparts. The Sharia does not treat the Muslim men and women equally. The Muslim woman was not allowed in the Muslim country to be a leader. Such a restriction was based on a hadith of the Prophet Muhammad that said, "Those who entrust their affairs to a woman will never know prosperity." Based on this hadith, the Sharia in Muslim countries doesn't allow a woman to be a president, judge, lawyer, or a religious leader such as imama or ruler of a country such as Khalifa. The woman is not allowed to lead men in prayer at all, even if they are underage. The Quran also allows the Muslim husband to cheat openly on his wife by having sex with other women under the coverage of polygamous marriage. According to Sharia, polygamy is necessary because it satisfies human instinct for the man burdened with a strong sexual desire, and for whom one woman is not enough to guarantee his chastity. The Sharia recommended that he adds to the first wife. Others, the total should not exceed 4. The Quran says, "Marry of the women who seem good to you, 2 or 3 or 4, and if you fear that ye cannot do justice to so many, then 1 only, or the captives that your right hands possess." Surah Al-Nisa 4, verse 3. The above verse permits the Muslim men to have sex with women who are not even their wives. Abu Sa'id al-Khudri said, "The Apostle of Allah, may peace be upon him, sent a military expedition to Adas on the occasion of the Battle of Hunain. They met their enemy and fought with them. They defeated them and took them captives. Some of the companions of the Apostle of Allah, may peace be upon him, were reluctant to have sexual intercourse with the female captives in the presence of their husbands who were unbelievers. So Allah, the Exalted, sent down the Quranic verse, "And all married women are forbidden unto you save those captives whom your right hands possess." Sunan Abu Dawud, Hadith number 2150. This verse allows the Muslim man to have sex with his female slaves without the sanctity of the marriage bond. The Sharia does not treat Muslims and non-Muslims equally. According to the Islamic Sharia, Christians living in Muslim countries were not allowed to build new churches, and if they had existing ones, they were not supposed to repair or renovate them. If a church was built after Muslim mujahideen invaded a country and occupied it, the Sharia required that church to be demolished and destroyed. This law was based on some of the Prophet Muhammad's hadiths. One of the last things that the Messenger of Allah, may Allah bless him and grant him peace, said was, "May Allah curse the Jews and the Christians. They have taken the graves of their prophets as places of prostration. 2 religions shall not coexist in the land of the Arabs." Muwatta Malik. It has been narrated by Umar bin al-Khattab that he heard the Messenger of Allah, may peace be upon him, say, "I will expel the Jews and Christians from the Arabian Peninsula and will not leave any but Muslims." Sahih Muslim. This restriction is also supported by the second Caliph Umar bin al-Khattab in the so-called Omarian Pact. Christians shall not build, in their cities or in their neighborhood, new monasteries, churches, convents, or monk cells, nor shall they repair, by day or by night, such of them as fall in ruins. Tafsir Ibn Kathir to Surah Al-Tawbah 9. Verse 29. The Sharia contains laws that authorize the Muslim men to oppress and abuse their Muslim women. It is permissible and encouraged by the Prophet Muhammad to subject Muslim girls to female genital mutilation when they are as young as 4 or 5 years old. The Prophet Muhammad erroneously assumed that circumcision would help the women to preserve the honor of their families. The Prophet Muhammad said, "Circumcision is a sunnah for men and a preservation of honor for women." Hadith of Abu al-Malik and Abu Dawud. Sharia does not have a minimum age limit for marriage. The Muslim father could give his girl in marriage as young as 9 years old. This is based on the example of the Prophet Muhammad with his child wife Aisha, whom he married when she was 6 and had sexual intercourse with her when she was 9. According to Sharia schools, a woman is utterly incompetent to enter into a marriage contract either herself or for another, even though her guardian should authorize her to do so. A father can contract the marriage of his virgin daughter without asking her consent, whatever her age, citing an article by Varma 1988, page 24. The Quran allows the Muslim man to beat his disobedient wife, daughter, or sister. Righteous women are therefore obedient. "And those you fear may be rebellious, nushuz, admonish them, banish them to their couches and beat them." Quran Surah Al-Nisa 4, verse 34. The Sharia forbids freedom of religion, and this is a clear violation of Article 18 of the Charter of Human Rights. Article 18 states that everyone has the right to freedom of thought, conscience, and religion. This right includes freedom to change his religion or belief, and freedom, either alone or in community with others and in public or private, to manifest his religion or belief in teaching, practice, worship, and observance. But the Prophet Muhammad denies such freedom of conversion and prescribes the death penalty for any Muslim man or woman apostatized from Islam. This law is based on two authentic hadiths spoken by the Prophet Muhammad: "Whosoever changes his religion, you must kill him." Sahih Muslim. Again, Allah's apostle said, "The blood of a Muslim who confesses that none has the right to be worshipped but Allah and that I am his messenger cannot be shed except in three cases. In cases for murder, a married person who commits illegal sexual intercourse, and the one who reverts from Islam, apostate, and leaves the Muslims." Sahih Muslim, Volume 9, Book 83, Hadith number 17. The Sharia gives Muslim mujahideen or fighters the right to convert non-Muslims to Islam by using force. Commenting on some verses of the Quran which teach violence, Surah Al-Baqarah 2, verses 191, 193, Al-Nisa 4, verses 76, 89, 91, Al-Tawbah 9, verses 5, 12, 14, 29, and Al-Anfal 8, verse 39. The Egyptian Muslim scholar Khalil Abdul Karim says, "These verses carry serious orders of killing the tribes that refuse to believe in the faith that is preached by Muhammad." And from the other side, there are hadiths issued by the Prophet that confirm this meaning very clearly, by which we mean killing anyone who refuses Islam. The Prophet Muhammad said, "I have been commanded to fight the people until they bear witness that there is no God except Allah and Muhammad is the messenger of Allah. If they say it, they forbid me their wealth and blood." The meaning of noncompliance is that anyone refuses to witness or utter the two shahada, "I bear witness that there is no God, but Allah and Muhammad are the messenger of Allah." There would be no protection for his wealth, women, children, and blood. Accordingly, killing the one who refuses to utter the two shahada is an obligation to every Muslim without exception. The message of Muhammad to all the tribes is, accept Islam and you will be safe. Any tribe or an individual refuse this offer would expose himself to physical annihilation, and his wealth, women, children, and slave girls should be taken as booty by the Muslims. Abdul Karim, 1999, pages 42 to 44. The contemporary Indian philosopher Swami Vivekananda, commenting on the Islamic invasion to India, says, "Every step forward was made with the sword, the Quran in the one hand and the sword in the other. Take the Quran, or you must die. There is no alternative." The complete works of Swami Vivekananda, Volume 2, pages 369 to 370. Again, Swami Vivekananda says, "Think of what Muhammad did to the world and think of the great evil that has been done through his fanaticism. Think of the millions massacred through his teachings, mothers bereft of their children, children made orphans, whole countries destroyed, millions upon millions of people killed." Swami Vivekananda, Volume 1, page 184. Commenting on Muslims' attitudes toward non-Muslims, Swami Vivekananda says, "Their watchword is, there is one God and Muhammad is his prophet. Everything beyond that not only is bad, but must be destroyed forthwith, at a moment's notice. Every man or woman who does not exactly believe in that must be killed. Everything that does not belong to this worship must be immediately broken. Every book that teaches anything else must be burnt." From the Pacific to the Atlantic, for 500 years blood ran all over the world. That is Mohammedanism. Swami Vivekananda, Volume 4, page 126. Chapter 62. In the Rehabilitation Center. It took Natasha a little over 2 years to overcome out of that mental problem which had been caused by those strong medication doses and electric shocks she was subjected to against her wish. Although after the trial she was transferred from the mental hospital to a rehabilitation center, still she needed a long time to regain her mental strength. During this long period, her brother and ex-husband Wahid and her Ethiopian girlfriend Almaz continued to visit and taking care of her until she was able to recognize them and talk to them. She also remembered and identified her two lovely children, Nadia and Sammy. That long period of recovery was a blessing in disguise for her brother Wahid and her Ethiopian girlfriend because a kind of intimate friendship was developed, and by the passing of time, it became a strong love affair between the two. But neither of the two was bold enough to admit it to the other. However, after Natasha regained her memory and strength and moved from the rehabilitation center to her former apartment, she was able to encourage her brother to talk to her girlfriend and reveal his love to her. And if she responded positively, he should go ahead and betroth her from her Ethiopian parents. Wahid followed the advice of his sister and confessed his love for Almaz. As soon as Almaz expressed her readiness to marry him, Wahid talked to her parents and officially betrothed her. Shortly after, the lovers got married and Almaz moved from her parents' house to her husband's apartment. Meanwhile, Natasha returned to her college and resumed her religious studies and majored in Islam and focused on women in Islam. After 3 years, she completed her studies and obtained a Bachelor of Arts in Religious Studies. Nonetheless, she was not satisfied with an undergraduate degree and registered for a master degree in religious studies and made women in Islam her area of specialization. She wanted to learn more about the status of women in Muslim societies. In a couple of years, Natasha was able to get a second university degree in religious studies. Her knowledge of the teachings of Islam on women was deepened, and her concern for Muslim women's suffering and abuse was increased. Although she was not brought up as a Muslim, her knowledge of Islam surpassed her knowledge of any other religion, including even her Christian faith. Natasha understood that although she learned a great deal of the teachings of Islam on women, she lacked the first-hand experience. She is longing for a visit to a Muslim country and witnessing the reality of those women who go through those abuses and sufferings in their daily lives. In order to achieve her goal, Natasha decided to travel to her motherland, which she was born, and carry out field research on the status of Sudanese Muslim women. She wants to collect data for her fieldwork research for writing her PhD dissertation. Wahid strongly stood against the decision of his sister to travel to Sudan and do research among Muslim women. His main objections that Natasha is well known among Muslims in Canada as a Muslim female convert to Christianity. She would expose herself to a great danger if Muslims in Sudan recognized her as the apostate woman who gave the enemies of Islam ammunition to attack their beautiful religion. She was in the news for quite a long time while she was in Calgary and after she moved to Toronto and her case went to court. Despite the objections of her brother and his wife, Natasha determined to take the risk and return to the country where she was born without the sanctity of the marriage bond. She even decided to go to her grandfather and mother's family. She knows that her relatives in Sudan attempted to slay her mother in honor killing, but instead they murdered her Russian grandmother Nadia Alexandrov. Natasha innocently thought that her Sudanese Muslim relatives would not punish her for the adultery of her mother. They might treat her as an innocent, illegitimate girl who has no hand in the sins of her parents who gave birth to her out of adultery. To win the favor of her Muslim relatives, Natasha decided to pretend to be still a Muslim girl. But she did not share such a decision with anyone, including her brother Wahid and his Ethiopian wife. In addition to that, she decided never to tell her relatives in Sudan about her marriage to her brother. Also, she would not talk about her kidnap, rape, imprisonment, and murder attempt by her biological father Sheikh Yasser Saif al-Din. She even decided not to mention to anyone that she has 2 children. In the meantime, she decided to keep her daughter Nadia and her son Sammy with her Ethiopian girlfriend and their father and her brother Wahid. Before her trip to Sudan, Natasha applied for a postgraduate admission at McGill University in Montreal, province of Quebec, in Canada. Her application has been accepted, and she got admission for doing research for a PhD, a postgraduate degree in the Department of the Middle East and Islamic Studies. She shared her plan of doing fieldwork in Sudan with her female supervisor. Her female supervisor welcomed her idea and encouraged her to go for a year to Sudan to carry out her fieldwork for writing her future dissertation. This story is to be continued in Book 2 under the same title, Natasha and Her Illegitimate Child in a Muslim Society. About the author of this novel. Dr. Ahmed is an author and scholar. He has 5 university certificates, BA, MA, and PhD, in philosophy and comparative studies of religions from the University of Bombay in India, and a Bachelor and Master of Religious Studies and Philosophy from a university in Canada. He was born and brought up as a Muslim, but through his study of philosophy and comparative studies of religions, he converted to Christianity. He has a writing style that can break through any religious, social, and cultural barriers and reveal the truth as it is. Moreover, his books are based on first-hand eyewitness because he witnessed those dire conditions of Muslim women with his own eyes. He has written 25 books, but so far has published 10 of them. His books have been written in English and translated by him in Arabic. All his books on the issues of women in Muslim societies and terrorism in Islam. His novels are available on his YouTube pages for listening as he reads them in English and Arabic.